Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we call the meeting to order. We have the agenda in front of us. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there are a couple on item I believe it's 8A. You should have a new quote sheet.
Okay.
SWCD item is going to be deferred until December 2nd, and we're going to add a closed session for the purpose of contract negotiations to the administrator section at the end of the meeting.
Okay, we have the corrections to the agenda and the additions. Is there a motion?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Shar
To approve.
moves. Is there
I'll second.
Tom seconds. All right, thank you. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Public input. Is there anybody here from the public that wishes to address the board today? All right, seeing none, we will move forward. Consent agenda. All had a chance to review the consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Thank you, Tom.
This is Ted, I'll second.
Thank you, Ted. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, motion carried. County employee recognition. Mike.
Good morning.
Morning.
Before we do county employee recognition, I'd just like to give a quick update on our food drive that we did in October, sponsored by the Wellness Committee. The Wellness Committee again sponsored a food drive for the Hubbard County Food Shelf through the month of October. When we contacted representatives from the food shelf, they indicated that while they greatly obviously appreciated food donations, money was also extremely helpful since they can purchase food in bulk. Taking into account the government shutdown and suspension of the SNAP benefits, we decided to extend the food drive until November, so November 14th. So we did 2 deliveries. The first delivery was 316.4 pounds of food and $225 on October 30th. The second delivery was for 99 pounds of food and $344 for a grand total of 415.4 pounds of food and $569.
Okay, very good.
As far as county employee recognition, the Auditor Treasurer's Department, Robin Hanson, Finance Manager, began the full-time position on November 16th. In Human Services, Missy Lyons, Social Worker, is recognized for service from October 31st, 2022 to November 28th. And in the Sheriff's Department, Richard Lundy, Dispatcher Jailer, began the full-time position on November 12th.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair, Mike, it's my understanding that you head up the food drive, so I thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, we will move on. Minnesota Power.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thanks for having me. My name is Drew Janke. I'm an environmental compliance specialist with Minnesota Power, here to give a project overview of our proposed Maple River to Cuyuna transmission line project. If you could scroll down, please. And one more, please. So let's jump right in. The Maple River to Cuyuna transmission line project is an approximately 160 mile, 345 kilovolt single circuit transmission line built on double circuit capable structures. The project will run from the Maple River substation, which is owned by Otter Tail Power just outside of Fargo, North Dakota, in the Harwood area. And the other substation or terminal point is the Cuyuna substation, and that's owned by Minnesota Power, just outside of Ironton, Minnesota, or the Brainerd-Baxter area. The project will be jointly owned by Minnesota Power, who I work for, Otter Tail Power Company, and Great River Energy. Why we're doing the project, really there's four main points here. It's to enhance the reliability of the regional transmission system. As the way we produce and use electricity changes, we need to ensure reliability across the grid. Increasing transmission system capacity, meeting growing electrical demand, and enhancing resiliency during extreme weather events, and then really enabling cost-effective regional transfers. So thinking, broad electrical transfers across the region. Next slide, please. A little further background. So in 2024, MISO, the Mid-Continent Independent System Operator, approved Tranche 2.1, essentially the second batch of regional transmission projects that MISO reviewed and looked at and determined there was a need for. And the Maple River to Cuyuna transmission line project was one of 24 projects approved in December of 2024. I touched on this a bit here, but the project will consist of single circuit 345 kilovolt transmission line built on double circuit capable structures. For this project, we will hang both sets of conductors, but they will be jumpered together. So initially it's going to operate as a single circuit, but down the road when the time comes to energize a second circuit, we will already have that second set of conductors hung on the other side. Timeline, where we've been and where we're going here, really throughout most of this year, we've been doing a lot of stakeholder engagement. We've had two rounds of public open houses. One round in June that consisted of 10 different open houses, and then we held a second round in October, and that was reduced down to 8 total open houses as our potential routing area decreased, which we'll touch on in a bit. Where we're going here, we anticipate permit application submittals to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission next year. We have 2 different types, which I'll touch on later. Additionally, looking forward into 26 and through 2028, we'll be doing detailed engineering, conducting environmental surveys in the field, right-of-way acquisition, and that public engagement will continue. We are planning a 3rd round of public open houses for the spring of 26, likely around March, April timeframe. If all goes well, which we assume it will, we'll begin construction in 2029 and have the project in service by 2033. So this is the initial study area that we began with. So for reference, on the far western or northwest portion of this figure is the Maple River substation just outside of Fargo. And then on the far east or right-hand side is the Cuyuna substation. And what you're seeing highlighted in blue is potential routing areas within that study area centered on existing transmission lines within the area. So generally a 3-mile buffer, 1.5 miles either side of existing transmission lines. Not only is it our preference to co-locate or route adjacent to existing lines, but we're actually driven by state statute to look at those routing opportunities initially as well. So this was the study area we started at and what we were able to show at the open houses in June. If you would scroll down, please. And what we have reduced it to this point is a preliminary routes area. So still largely centered on existing transmission lines, but essentially we cut out most of the southwest portion of that initial study area.
What was the reason?
A lot of the reasoning, we got a lot of feedback on constraints in that area, but there's also a lot of biological resources that we were avoiding, primarily Glendalough State Park.
Okay.
That really was a big driver in cutting out that area.
Thank you.
Yep. And here again, just for reference, this is the area still under consideration or preliminary routes. What we hope to do, or we will be doing from now until the next round of open houses, is refining this down further to get to more of a proposed route. at some point next year. So I mentioned permit application submittals going in next year. So for this project, we'll be going to the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission for 2 types of permits. First one is a certificate of need, which is essentially like it sounds. We go to the commission with an application package outlining why the project is needed. That one we anticipate filing early in 2026, likely early February. And then the second type of permit is the route permit, and that's the one where we actually go to the commission with a proposed route on a map. And through that process, anyone can propose alternate routes for the commission to consider. But that one, we need a little more time to develop that proposed route, so that'll be a little later in 2026. Right now, we think likely around that August timeframe. Through both of these processes, there's ample opportunities for public comment and engagement, but with these open houses, we're trying to gather that ourselves as much as we can ahead of time. A portion of the project will be routed through North Dakota to connect into the Maple River substation. So just for awareness, North Dakota does have a fairly similar permitting process. The Public Service Commission will be applying to the PSC for a Certificate of Public Convenience and Necessity, which is akin to the Certificate of Need in Minnesota, and then also a Certificate of Corridor Compatibility and Route Permit, which is similar to the Route Permit in Minnesota. I've touched on this a bit already here, but kind of our routing process, step by step here. So we had that defined our initial study area, and that was that first figure that was shown. From there, we took feedback from open houses and agencies, like I mentioned, and refined it down to the preliminary routes, which is where we're at now. And we're taking further feedback both from this latest round of open houses and then engagement with both state and federal agencies. And we'll get down to identifying a proposed route before we submit applications to both the Minnesota PUC and the North Dakota PSC. These are, during the routing process and really at these public open houses, we're asking for feedback not only on what sort of constraints should we be aware of, but also if anyone has any routing suggestions or opportunities, we want to hear those as well. Once we do get down into a proposed route, we will hit the ground running with environmental surveys and also some engineering studies, specifically geotechnical surveys, which really feed heavily into what sort of structures we can use in a specific area. But from an environmental standpoint, we'll really hit the full suite from cultural and archaeological resource surveys to wetland surveys, and then a whole suite of biological surveys as well. Our typical design and proposed preferred structure is this steel monopole structure. So this is a double circuit capable structure. One circuit hangs off of either arm, if you will, of the structure you're seeing here. These structures range from anywhere from 120 to 180 feet tall. Really depends on the site topography on where we're at. And the right-of-way width for a new 345 kV double circuit capable structure is 150 feet wide. In an instance where we can co-locate a route adjacent to an existing, in this example, it's a 230 kilovolt structure, we can overlap that right-of-way by up to 30 feet. So the new right-of-way required in this instance would be 120 feet off of the existing edge of that right-of-way. And I guess this figure gives you a little bit of scale for reference. So the structures are quite a bit taller than an existing wooden H-frame structure that you might see. I mentioned our preferred design is this tubular monopole structure. In instances, primarily with poor soil conditions, we may have to switch to one of the 2 lattice tower structures that you see on the far right there. Note these lattice structures have four legs rather than the monopole legs. So we prefer them. Typically landowners and especially farmers prefer the monopoles, but we do have to keep these open as options. This one shows typical pre-construction and then into operation sequencing. So we'll start with surveying and right-of-way clearing, stake out structure locations, pour concrete foundations with anchor bolts, stand up those structures, string the wires, and then after energization, there is a cleanup and restoration phase that we need to meet before the project goes fully operational. I touched on this a bit here, but some highlights on what we've been out and about doing in the community. So we did launch a project website in June. So a lot of folks have been using that. A lot of questions coming in through there. We do update that as we are able to. We did have our first round of open houses, as I mentioned, in June. Second round was just held in October, and we're planning for a third round in the March-April timeframe. I believe that's all I have for you. I'll hang out in case there are any questions.
Do you see, or can you project if there's gonna be any problems with the permitting? Any reason why it would be scrutinized, difficult, or denied?
I'd say, no major fatal flaws that we've identified to this point. A lot of times at these open houses, because we don't have a proposed route to show yet, we just have potential routing options. We get a lot of comments, well, don't route it through my land, or,
Well,
some do want it, most don't, I'd say, but no, nothing that would prevent us from getting a permit to this point, though.
Any ecological sensitive areas that have been identified?
There are a few, and we meet with the DNR pretty frequently. A lot of that comes from the DNR's data and databases, but nothing, I guess, that's a showstopper yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you have a rough idea on how much existing right-of-way you would be on?
Right, like, we don't have a route yet. Really, in the northwest portion of Minnesota, as we approach the border, there's not a whole lot of existing lines to follow, so we'll be largely greenfield through that area. And then similarly on the eastern end, we might, as we approach the substations, it's tough to follow existing lines. But there is quite a bit that we should be able to follow throughout the route. Back of the napkin, I'd say lower 80%. Right now, just ballparking, we should be close to that 80 to 85% co-location.
What is the source of the power?
So it's not tied to any specific generation source. Once that power goes up into the grid, it just goes where it's needed. And so what this is allowing is that flow through.
Okay, well, I was just kind of curious, is it coming from a combination of coal and, say, solar or wind, producing it, bringing it to the station, and then it's transferred from there, or just kind of curious, that's all?
Yeah, I mean, it's a grid project, but I will say, as we shift, we retire traditionally baseload coal units and shift to more of these renewables or intermittent penetrations. That is one of the driving forces for the project, is to allow more for that regional transfer, because power isn't being generated at near load as much, so we need to be able to transfer that power more than we have in the past.
What is the communities, at the public open houses? What have been comments? Have they been mostly supportive or against? Because it's eminent domain, right?
So I'll answer the eminent domain question first. First, we try to avoid that, and we typically can avoid that at all opportunities, but that eminent domain comes into play only after we have a route permit issued from both of the state commissions. And then as far as feedback we've gotten, a lot of the questions you all have asked are very common questions. We do get, where is this generation coming from? It's really the big one. Why don't you use nuclear instead of this? It's kind of across the board. A lot of not in my backyard, I will say that.
So when the line went down on 18 here, I know there were property owners that actually sold because they didn't want to be close to the power line. Do you have anything to do with property owners that want to sell if they have their residence along, or do they just have to work through a realtor or whatever?
Yeah, we do work with landowners as much as we can, and that does become an option. But it gets, as you can imagine, can be expensive fairly quickly. So it's kind of a case-by-case basis. And we do have land agents likely out in the field next year, starting to talk with landowners. And we want to start that as early as we can.
And then one more question, how deep into the ground do you dig the pole?
That is a good question, and I'm not an engineer, and I won't pretend to be. I think it depends on the geotechnical survey at the specific structure location. Rough number or general number is about 50 to 60 feet.
Okay, so the reason I asked is there's actually a county in Minnesota that has a lot of wind turbines going in, and it's depleted their gravel supply in their county. So is yours packed with gravel and concrete also?
Concrete.
Concrete?
Yep.
Okay. And then if you would decommission, do you cut the pole off so far down into the ground, or what happens?
Yeah, we don't anticipate decommissioning this, but typically we would take out the top 4 feet and leave the rest in.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
That's a lot of work.
Yes.
Is the single circuit that all the wires hang on one side?
Yes, so traditionally, you'll have your pole and one circuit hangs off one side and the other hangs off the other. For this project, we'll have all 6 wires strung and they'll be jumpered together near the terminal points. So it'll be all one circuit, but yes, it's double circuit capable, meaning one circuit on either side.
So going that deep in the ground, you don't have a problem of too much lean on one side then with the weight?
Right.
Yeah, okay. And then to add another circuit, you don't need any more poles, you just add another circuit to it.
Yeah, essentially we just remove those jumper connections.
I guess I just have a comment. I'm sure you've been working on this for a while, and it's 2025, and I see your timeline is 2033 before it's in service. So that's 8 years from now. So this isn't something that you just decide one year and do it the next year. It's obviously a long process.
Very long, lots of engagement, and the routing, trying to get end to end roughly 160 miles, you can imagine there's a lot of constraints that we need to try to route around as much as possible.
For property owners that were just might be going over, do they get a single payment or is it a yearly?
It's a one-time payment, and that's based on, so we do a market study actually on each individual area, and then negotiations start from there.
Yeah, that's 250 foot of right of way is quite a bit. But I'm surprised at the minimal amount of structures per mile.
Yeah, like 5 to 7.
Per mile. That's quite an accomplishment. There's a lot of strength in all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Any more questions? All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Department of Corrections.
Morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
I brought my support person with me, Judge Catherine Lorsbach.
Morning.
Good morning.
Seems supportive. In front of you today, we have a proclamation in support of the Hubbard County DWI Court. As all of you are aware, it's a culmination of a long journey with a lot of efforts from county, state, and the judicial branch. This proclamation kind of serves as a final step in documenting the county board's support for the DWI Court. The Treatment Court Committee is meeting on January 6th to give final approval to our DWI Court. And just an update too, behind the scenes, we continue to meet to develop policies and procedures for the program. And I think everything is going well. Any questions? Denise limited me to 1 paragraph too, so I had to stay focused.
Ever since I've been commissioner, we've been working on this. I am just thrilled to see it here.
And we
I will-
appreciate your
I will
support.
gladly make a motion.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
Thank you for being willing to take this on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
And thank you for your support. We're really excited to get this going, and once we're up and running, we'll make sure that an invitation is extended so that you all can come and see the work that we're doing. It'll take us a little while to get our feet under us, but I think that once we get going, it's gonna be pretty successful. It's certainly very needed in this county.
Be interesting to see the process and how things transition and so forth, so, yeah, thank you.
Hopefully help a lot of people.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Solid waste.
Good morning. All right, have a few items this morning. It's kind of that time of the year where we are renewing our annual contracts that we have within our department. So the first item I have is to review and approve quotes for our 2026 waste tire recycling. We received one quote for our waste tire recycling, and that's typically all we receive with this quote. We do publish all of these quote requests I have this morning in our county newspaper. Also reach out to all the vendors that I know of kind of within our region as well. So, so we're looking at with this quote, again, with the waste tire quote, we received one quote from Liberty Tire out of Savage, Minnesota, which includes tire collection at both of our county transfer stations. Our previous contract was for $307.50 per ton. And that was a 2-year contract. In 2024, we recycled approximately 286 tons of waste tires from our facilities. And their proposal for this next contract, which I'd anticipate being a 2-year contract as well, would be $320 per ton. So it's slight increase, which has kind of been the trend, as you can see, for the last several years. So
How often do they pick up? Once a year, twice a year, or on demand?
So at our north transfer station, we typically have it's just a pile out there. They clean us out probably 2 to 3 times a year at our north transfer station, and in Park Rapids, it's just on call. So,
Okay.
we have a bunker there. It varies depending on the season, but I imagine they're there just about once a month. So.
Okay, all right.
Josh, is this really our only option for tires?
Yep, right now it's pretty much our only option. There's another vendor in the state that we receive quotes from once in a while, but it's
Yeah.
unfortunately they're probably our most expensive item that we deal with. So, and there isn't really any other solutions within our region. So, or state. I mean, really regionally, as in multi-state regions.
So I'm on a NACO committee, we're talking about data centers, and they're looking at creating batteries out of rubber because they're non-inflammatory. Do you know do you have any idea what our tires go for use?
So Liberty Tire, I think they typically are making like a crumb rubber type product. So, used a lot in like AstroTurf fields, playground equipment, things like that. But, they're a national company kind of focused. I mean, they have several offices places across the nation. So I'm sure they're into several different products, but.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Ms. Ted will move.
Thank you, Ted. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shar. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried.
All right, thank you. The next one I have is to review and approve quotes for a 2026 scrap metal recycling contract. And with this contract, we actually received 2 quotes this year, which is the first time we've received 2 since I've been here, which was nice to see. And this contract includes our appliances, car batteries, propane cylinders, and all of our scrap metals collected at our transfer stations. So in 2024, we recycled approximately 1,834 tons of scrap metal and appliances and 21 tons of automotive batteries at our transfer stations in the county. So the quotes this year, I'm recommending again staying with Crowing Recycling, and they had proposed $85 per ton for our scrap metal and 10 cents per pound for our batteries. And then it's a no charge or no credit for our propane tanks that we generate. And you can see historically, the rate historically follows the market. So last year we were at $79 per ton. 2024 we were at 84 a ton, and you can see kind of where that's been going the last 5 years. So, but my recommendation would be to renew our contract with Crow Wing Recycling for 2026. So.
Josh, the propane tanks, now are these little 1 pound tanks or are they the 20 pounders?
Typically it's spelled out. I mean, obviously we take the 1 pound tanks and handle them the same way, but typically it's the larger tanks, just that we gotta treat them a little bit separately when we load them and send them out, so.
Okay, and then the small 1 pounders, you just put those in the metal pile?
They go, yep, just with the metal. I mean, it's good to still, we have kind of separate areas where we kind of try to store them separately, but
Okay.
they all end up going in the same metal pile.
Because I have a few to dispose of. Thank you.
Yep.
Ms. Dave, I'll move to approve the growing recycling bid.
Okay, thank you, David. Is there a second?
This Ted will second.
Ted, any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, and then the next item I have is 8C, which is to review and approve our 2026 electronics recycling contract. And this was the one that was updated since the original board packet. So you should have received an updated sheet with a different proposal on there. And it changed who we're awarding the contract to, so. We did receive 3 quotes for our electronics recycling or e-waste for 2026. To compare the quotes, I typically just run through the items or data that we have from shipping our materials for this calendar year to generate a total estimated cost of what it'd cost or what credits we'd be receiving next year to find the best responsible quote that way. So and then with e-waste, which is a little bit different, we kind of have a state report that goes July to June every year, but we also have, do our reporting annually as well, so we're kind of double the way we have to report this. But from fiscal year 2024, we recycled about 107 tons of electronics from our transfer stations. So with the updated quote sheet, the low quote, or the best quote, I guess, ends up being Com2 Recycling Solutions out of Carroll Stream, Illinois. And if you see kind of on the updated sheet, I had the total estimated credit that we'd be receiving throughout this contract period would be about $7,600 based on this year's volume. So that's money we'd be getting rebated back to us. The other companies, Universal Recycling Technologies, we'd end up having a cost of about $200. And retrofit, the third quote, would end up being a cost of about $12,500. One thing new this year, the contractor's gonna be providing us with our Gaylords and pallets. That's what we ship and store the material in, which will be nice. And they'll also be able to accept our rechargeable, bigger power tool, rechargeable batteries. Previously, we had been shipping them to Crow Wing Recycling. We weren't able to do that this next year, so we found it was zero cost solution with our e-waste recycler to provide that service to us. So, so my recommendation would be to approve the 2026 e-waste contract to Com2 Recycling Solutions out of Carroll Stream, Illinois.
This Ted will make the motion to accept the low quote of number 2.
Thank you, Ted. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shar. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
All right, thank you. The next item I have, 8D, is to review and approve quotes for our North Transfer Station remodel. So this project is to remodel the office area of our North Transfer Station. It would include expanding our office area a little bit into kind of we have a small shop area on the east side of the office area. So we'd expand into there, replace windows, doors, flooring, and just kind of give it a facelift on the inside of that office, which is badly needed. The project was budgeted for 2025. We received 2 quotes with MCON out of Nevis being the low quote. And yeah, I guess just other things to note, this again would include, windows, doors, flooring, that expansion of our office break room area into that unheated shop space. And include HVAC, plumbing, and some electrical as well. So we're not really changing the outside, expanding on the outside at all. Again, it's just to get more heated office space for, break room in the office and from additional heated storage within the building there, so. And, yeah, I think that's about all I have on that one, so. The low quote again was MCON for $51,912.60 for this project.
I have one more question now. And this one I looked up that Fund 6613, and it's budgeted for 2025, $50,000, which is no problem with the 51, but it's already had 14,600 spent in that category. Do you have funds from another fund?
Yeah, we have, have funds just within our solid waste balance, to cover that. Scoping these projects out a year and a half in advance, I was expecting it to be, 10, 20,000 cheaper than what the project is. So it's just pulling, using our reserves and pulling it out of a different account to kind of come up with that overage, but.
You think your overall end of the year fund balance is gonna be decreased, or is that gonna be where you want it to be?
I think we've been tracking, just going through updated budgets. I think we're tracking well. We don't always spend in every category up to what we budget for, so I think we have plenty of flexibility within our budget.
Just that fund balance at the end of the year is what I was thinking about. Okay.
And I see that all this work is gonna be completed over the winter. And even on the days when the facility is not open, they'll be allowed entrance to do the work they need to do.
Yep, I think we'll start, approved, we'll start discussing with the contractor. We might look at having to get a portable trailer or something in there, I think, to make the construction go a little bit quicker, but there isn't too much involved. It's just, a lot of like I said, facelift doors and windows and.
Yeah. You shouldn't have far to take whatever they're
No,
demoing out of there.
disposal should be reasonable, so.
All right, is there a motion?
This Ted will make a motion to accept the low quote number 1.
All right, thank you, Ted. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Shar. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
And I guess to, make an additional comment, I think, I suppose a lot of this, since it is dragging into the winter, will probably be, reflected on the expenditures in our 2026 balance sheet, but, we had the money set aside in 2025, so. So the next final item I have is to review and approve our credit card contract for solid waste. So currently, we offer just cash and check payments at our transfer stations. Many customers nowadays would like to have the option for paying with a credit card, and it creates some operational issues within our department when people show up and they don't have any cash or checks to have to run up to an ATM, and is kind of a hassle. So anyway, we've been working with our scale and accounting software program, or the company that provides that program, Advanced Weighing Systems, and they have a credit card system available that we can incorporate into our payment and accounting systems. We discussed with Jeff and Marie and would like to move forward with ValPay, which is the company through AWS. We ended up charging a 3.5% processing fee for every credit card transaction. That would be paid by the customer. And that would cover what Valpay would assess us, which is a 3.25% fee on the overall purchase price. So that's why it's built into that. It'd have to be built up to that 3.5%.
Do you have an average purchase price? You know, what would that be? If somebody utilized the system, what do you think the average cost would be to them? So a customer comes in, something was weighed.
You know, it's so variable.
All over the board?
I mean, yeah, sometimes you get an out-of-county something coming across and it's $14, and sometimes it's a load of tires and it's $250. But, you know, I think generally you're under that, you know, you'll be under that $100, $200 mark probably generally.
And are you gonna utilize the scale system as materials go out that you sell? Or is it more on volume, like wood chips or concrete?
Yeah, the
crushed
stuff
concrete?
a lot of the stuff we sell is based on volume, but, I mean, we still have that capability within our scale system to track based on yardage versus tons, so it's kind of built into our whole accounting system,
Okay,
so.
all right.
So two general comments. We currently have credit card processing through a lot of the different departments for the county, and we're gonna be changing that sometime hopefully in the first quarter and before May tax payments are due, because we're gonna be going with Tyler Payments, which will integrate directly with the Tyler tax system. That's why we're doing that. And so that'll be a really easy interface for people to pay that. When people are paying their tax bill, they will have the opportunity to do an ACH transaction, which will have a flat fee. Like, I don't know what it is, $2.75, $3, something like that. So you pay a $5,000 tax bill, and you're not gonna pay 3%. You have the option to do that, or you know, some people do that. This is just a convenience item for most people, and we'll be bringing a policy forward to add the surcharge to all of our credit card transactions. We're currently doing that, but we need to update the policy to make sure that that's consistent with what other counties are doing. And you see that in other places. We just don't have the capacity to eat that transaction fee coming from those credit card processors. I know a couple people that were on the front end developing that concept, and they have so much money rolling in. You can't imagine. 3% of everything that's happening across the world is going to bankers. So, but we will be bringing that when we looked at whether or not to use a single payer or to split off just solid waste. We really couldn't come up with an argument, and the transaction fee is gonna be relatively the same. The interface with Josh's scale and other systems makes sense, which is why we simply said, if you wanna bring that to the board, that makes sense for us. Everything else will be, available through the website. So it'll be separated from this one. I mean, this one's only gonna be tied to the scale and other bills that they might have there at Solid Waste. So, having talked with Marie and Josh through this and the rest of his admin staff, this makes sense.
So I read an article that several credit card companies supposedly are lowering their fees to 2%. So if the fees are lowered here, are we gonna tie the policy into whatever the fee is?
Our intent is simply to cover
Yeah.
the transaction fee.
Yeah.
We are making a big guess when we go with the Tyler payments, because we collect almost $50 million worth of taxes. I have no idea how much of that people are gonna pay by credit card. If our volume goes up, our fee goes down. If the fees are adjusted in the future, then our processing fee would be adjusted accordingly. We can't just pass that through that. We have to have something equivalent that's gonna generate enough revenue to cover the payment that we're making to the,
Right, I
to the
understand that, yeah.
payment vendor. And the terminologies has to be kind of a little bit specific when we do that, so we'll address that in the policy. But yeah, if that fee goes down, then our processing fee will go down. It's just intended to cover that cost.
And then with Valpay here, or AWS, it's in our contract where it's reviewed after a year as well, kind of based on how many transactions we have, that fee would be really reevaluated to see if it'd be lowered too, so.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't carry cash or a check blank anymore. I'll move to approve.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Tom. Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you.
Natural resources.
I'll beat up. Do you want to be on this first issue?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, haven't been here for a while. It's good to see you guys again. So yeah, a couple weeks ago I received a letter from Northern Waters Land Trust and DNR that they're working on the Northern Waters Land Trust is working to purchase 42 acres of land in Hubbard County. This land is located on the north side of Upper Bottle Lake. It contains 42 acres of mostly timberland with, I believe the aerial shows a small cabin and a couple outbuildings on it. So I just kind of want to be the messenger and be the middleman between the the two entities, I guess. But as a county land manager, I support public land, but I support public land in the right places. So I want to just stay. Our department kind of wants to just stay neutral on this, and I'll be the messenger. So, yeah. So they're let's see if I have any more information here. So, they plan on purchasing in December of 2025. It's a future expansion to the Mantrap WMA on the upper side of Upper Bottle Lake. So, I'd figured I'd bring it to you guys and let them know support or no support. Or I know it's probably going to ruffle a few feathers. So
I know this isn't your deal. I mean,
No.
you're just the mouthpiece for this, but
Yep.
it's just disappointing that the last time they came to us with the first proposal for the WMA, that they already knew, I'm sure, that this was gonna be part of their expansion. So why wasn't that brought forward at that point in time to at least let us have some sort of input or at least have a discussion about it? And it would have been a little easier to maybe move forward with something.
Exactly.
But it seems like they hide things behind the curtain, and all of a sudden, the curtain's opened, and this is what you get. Or you don't get, in this case.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
yeah.
To me, this is an ideal piece of property to develop. I mean, that's a big tract there, in between two resorts. So it's already, so if it was developed in the homes, it already meets the thing that they always look at is it compatible with neighboring properties? Oh, yeah, there's resorts over there. And I think we probably could get 3 properties out of this. And it's already, just as it is, $4,548 in taxes just for that top part. Then there's that little bitty sliver there.
Yep.
So, thanks for being neutral, because I'm very much against it.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I think it speaks volumes where they didn't come themselves. I think they realize that as far as myself, I won't speak for the board, but I'll speak for myself. I wish they would stay out of Hubbard County, go somewhere else.
I would just add to, let's see, 1,142 front feet, which would hold about close to 6 riparian lots. The average house at $750K, do the math, that's $4.5 million worth of assessed value.
Yep.
You're talking
Yeah.
$20,000 a year in just county tax revenue alone. if it was built out in the future. And you couple that with the fact that the two larger lots, they took on Big Man Trap already,
Yep.
which was about another $40,000 a year in county tax revenue. I mean, on an area that's already well protected, far beyond what they considered the quotient point for not being protected, which is 25% developed around a lake, and I think Big Man Trap is at 3%.
Yeah, it's not much.
Because there's a lot of public and private land around these areas already, so it frustrates me because, and I'm not saying this to you, Corey, you understand that, I'm saying it so the public understands
Yep.
that a lot of the money that the Northern Waters Land Trust and other entities, Trust for Public Lands, are using are taxpayer dollars through the Heritage Outdoor Fund to the state of Minnesota. So we're using taxpayer dollars to purchase private land to turn around and convey it to a public entity taking it off the tax rolls. I don't think that's appropriate. I think the local government unit should have the final say on whether that happens or does not happen when public funds are being used or taxpayer funds, whether it's through a grant or straight taxpayer funds. But unfortunately, that's not the way it is right now. But so I definitely would not support this because it's eroding our tax base.
Sure, yep, I agree.
I have something to say too. I agree with the other four commissioners, and just for the public to understand, there was an article in the Star Tribune yesterday about how property taxes are skyrocketing in Minnesota. And the public gets mad at us for our levy, but we're only a portion of the levy that's on the tax bill. And so what Tom and Dave brought up for dollar figures, in 2025 for the two parcels, the taxable was $4,626. Out of that, $2,470 went to the county, and the rest of the $2,156 went to the townships and the schools. So there's more than just the county here, and people need to understand the only way that their property taxes can go down is if we can increase the property not property value, what's the word I'm trying?
Tax capacity?
Thank you, tax capacity in Hubbard County. And I too am totally against this. I have one other thing to say, because I talked to two property owners on Mantrap, trying to explain to them after that happened. They said to me, it doesn't matter to us what we pay for property tax because we can afford it. And secondly, when I suggested to them that they would sell their property because they were so in favor of the other green space, they both refused. So there's a lot to think about here, and I hope the public appreciates already the hundreds of acres that we already have for the public to use. And there is a place to develop. There's a reason why we allow development in Hubbard County. So, and yes, again, this is not about you. And I agree with Ted, they should have come in person.
Yes, I agree too.
That was really low.
It was a surprise to me, so.
And while you do to get PILT funding for this, it's woefully low compared to if it was developed.
Sure.
What we
Yep.
would
Yep.
get. And I also want people to understand, because every time a discussion like this comes up, somebody always tries to pin, well, you don't care about the environment. Well, that is not true.
Right.
You can do both.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be one or the other. I think you said that last time. It does not have to be one or the other. We have a very strong shoreline ordinance that does a very good job of protecting our waterways. And we look at the big picture, and when we look at this watershed, especially the northern part, there is so much public land and protected land in those areas at all that there's plenty of room for development and protecting our tax capacity. So when this comes along in this area in particular, it's like, come on, how much, when's enough enough?
And with this property, if it was divided into 6 lots, most of it would be green. The houses would be 150 feet back. There would be the restrictions on what they can do in the shoreline area.
Yep. So,
We've got a good ordinance that protects.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Yep. I wasn't gonna say much, but, I'm frustrated with WMAs because they don't manage their timber correctly. That's another thing too is,
what value is really gonna come off these properties is if they're not gonna even manage the timber, stuff like that, and, they won't allow a trail or a snowmobile or ATV trails, so that's another thing. There's things that boggle my mind, and I don't know.
And in the Star Tribune article yesterday, people are having to decide if they're gonna cut back on their grocery bill to be able to afford to stay in their houses, because it's crazy. So couple this on top of what the state is putting back on counties, cities, and schools.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep. And another thing is, like, you know, we're county land, but everything we make on our property gets spread out throughout the county, schools, cities, townships. And with WMAs, you know, hunting licenses, they get, I mean, that money goes to St. Paul or Minneapolis, who knows where that goes, but, you know, with county land, you know exactly where it's going, so.
So the truth of the matter is, if a private individual wants to sell their property,
Yes, they
we
can
don't,
sell.
we don't get to say anything about
Yep.
that. And right now, they have the ability to use those funds to purchase those things for this purpose if they can get the funds available for that. So the message we need to bring to St. Paul is that, specifically what Commissioner Delahunt said, if public dollars are gonna be used to convert lands from taxable to non-taxable, then the local authority ought to have an opportunity to say yes or no. Then you put the property owner in a bad spot, then are we gonna go in and buy that so we can redevelop that? We could, it's an option. We have 11 acres on Boulder we've not been doing anything with for a while that we'd have an option to do exactly that with. So that's the nature of the process right now. They are letting us know that they're doing this because they have the ability to do that. If we wanted to draft some legislation, we could work with a couple of other counties that have a similar thought, because it would be a localized, you know, I think there's about 11 counties that have managed a lot of lands that actually have those departments, that we would get our own, staff to lobby, our own lobbyists for that specific item. And if that's something that we want to consider, I think that, what's that, Northern Counties group is probably the group that we should join and work that legislative item through, would be the way that we can do this. And it's good for all of you to say these things when we do this, because I think it's important that the public knows that's your perspective on that. But if we want anything to change, we actually have an opportunity to advocate for legislation that would allow us to do that. And I think we should probably plan on joining that Northern Counties group, bringing this issue through them, and either working with their lobbyists or hire our own to bring something like that forward. I know that our representatives would bring that forward on our behalf, but you have to go through the lobbying process to make sure you've got support for those things. And we're coming into a legislative session coming up just after the first of the year, so it's a good time to bring that forward. I can talk to some of the.
Reach out to Jack. It's Jack Swanson.
I will
Rosa,
reach out to Jack Swanson. I'll also reach out to,
and their administrator maybe, or whoever.
yeah, they don't have one, but, I will check with Brett in Itasca, because I know they have similar questions. And Josh over in Cass. I mean, there's 4 of us right here that should have enough, public lands that we would have a very similar belief on that.
I'd be happy to serve on it if we end up in that group.
Oh,
and
Me too.
Carry the water on this, if you guys are good with that, because this needs to change.
I'll call Jack this afternoon.
And then we're actually trying to do something.
Yep.
It's one thing to complain, but we do have an opportunity to do something, to move it forward.
I think there's an opportunity to create legislation that would allow for a local government approval on a conversion of something like that.
In the meantime, what we can do is, my perspective, I don't know if you're looking for a motion or something, but I think we should send a letter of, I don't support this because of the erosion of our tax capacity in an area that's already well protected.
Would you have a motion for me to draft a letter for you to review before I sent it to them, to ask them
Yep, I
not
like
to
that.
do this?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Didn't expect it that way, but. Any more discussion? All right. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
On to something a little bit
I'll bring
better.
that draft on the second so you can review it.
Yeah, I believe you guys should have a say, especially in lake shore properties like that. That's a big one, so. Okay, something to do with our department now. So 2027, we are planting just 29,000 jack pine, but they need to start growing the trees, so we have to pay for them. This one's a year and a half ahead of time. It's pretty cheap. You know, everything in life is raising in cost so much, but trees are actually staying pretty cheap to buy. $228 per 1,000. Be $6,612 total. And PRT, we've pretty much only received a quote from them for the last 5 or 10 years.
On just jack pine or other species?
All our pine species. Yeah, so they send us wonderful trees. They seem to grow good, and they're really good trees.
They're out of Wisconsin, correct? Versus
Michigan,
Michigan.
I believe.
Michigan.
Oh, they were Ontario, somewhere in Canada, but they moved a
Okay,
a
Michigan.
building down to Michigan, I believe. Yeah, Howell, Michigan.
Okay.
So yeah, this won't be the big year, but 28, we'll be planting all the blowdown sites, so that number will look quite a bit different. But looking for approval today for that.
Are you anticipating planting any other species in 27?
I don't believe so. We'll be doing a lot of trenching,
Okay,
so you trench and spray a year ahead of time. But yeah, for 27, there isn't too many sites, so it's just the jack pine. This 26 will be planting a lot of white pine.
okay. So some sites you're probably just going natural regeneration.
Yeah, a lot of, we just let either the hardwoods come back or the aspen regenerate.
This Ted will make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Ted. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
All right, thank you. I guess, updates, the blowdown timber harvesting is going well. It's, pretty much getting wrapped up. The 25,000 cords we sold earlier this fall. So that's good. It's all looking really good up there. Deep Lake Park, we've been doing quite a bit of work out there. Jake and I, we planted probably 250 trees along the lake shore. That's looking good. Ski trails, there's a pretty good plan going for ski trails this winter. We're gonna have the help of the Soaring Eagle Ski Club. It's Itasca Tour Ski Club.
Itasca Ski Club.
They'll be helping us out this winter with the ski grooming until we can get our own equipment out there. And then future development, I think, future phases will look at, developing some nice ski trails out there.
Next week, or next meeting, we'll be bringing a scope of work for Phase 2 from SRF Consulting. We will be bringing this to the Parks Board next Monday. Yep, next Monday, the 24th. And we'll have some idea on what that additional scoping looks like, so we can give you a bigger update next week, or on the 2nd.
Yep, and then, hoping to have it open to the public as soon as possible, just as public land. There's a few things we have to finish up. The wells, there's 2 wells that need sealed, so there's big holes open out there that they're gonna start working on that next week. And then, some signage, we have some signs to put up, so.
And we need to secure that shop.
Yep, and secure the garage, so a few things to do, but should be shortly here.
Speaking
Go ahead.
speaking about abandoning wells. I talked with Jake Chauncey
Yes.
yesterday. Okay, I
Yep,
was
he
wondering
called
if
me
you
and
got ahold of
they,
you. 'Cause if we can get part of that paid for through that funds.
Yep,
and
I
then
believe
that would
the
be-
the
that
quote
would
was
be great.
$4,900 and he said they'd pay up to half of it, so that's pretty nice.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Yep,
I was
yep.
glad I was there
Yeah,
yesterday
thanks for
that
mentioning it to him,
conversation.
'cause-
Yep.
Soaring Eagle's a school trust land, and so we have to, we're
Sure.
supposed to have a permit to ski there. We buy through the state.
Sure,
But people will be able to ski without a permit at Deep Lake,
I would think so.
because
Yeah.
it doesn't have anything to do with the state.
Unless they get grant and aid dollars to.
It won't be a grant and aid trail yet. It's
Okay, so
possible that,
eventually
it's
they-
possible future.
Okay,
Either there will be grant and aid and they're supposed to have the pass to do that,
Yep.
or it'll be a county park and we'll be charging something for the use of the
Okay.
resources.
okay.
But for our reason to hurry up and get some ski trails groomed this year is to get people out there and
Yep.
get used to it.
Yep.
So that there can be a little bit of excitement about that.
That was one of the questions asked last night at the Hubbard County Township Association,
Okay,
is where we were at. with the-
yeah, very close, so, yeah, I would say within 2 to 3 weeks, of a soft opening,
Yeah, we'll just have to make sure that that service door and that garage
Yeah.
door are operable and securable, and then we'll have to secure the doorways and the windows that are missing.
Yep, but for the CUP to actually be a park, it probably won't. We're kind of reworking, we're getting another final plan from SRF Consulting, so we have to get those numbers before we can actually turn in the CUP.
We're gonna have to do
or
an
the-
environmental assessment of sorts before we can do the CUP. So that'll be a winter project. Eric would talk a little bit about that, but it's not gonna change the timing of what we're planning on doing. Phase one essentially will be complete, next summer when the road and the parking lot
Yep.
are improved. And then phase two, we're gonna review what is left in the different phases, and we may reprioritize some things, but this additional scope of work for the contractor to do this work for us will include all of those elements, up to and including applying for grant funding for phase two, right? And it might be coming from more than one source, because there's Trails grant money as opposed to Greater Minnesota Parks and Trails general development monies that we may be looking for, so. And we know that that was originally called out as a 5-phase plan. And if the phases are 3 to 5 years each, we're a long way from being done. We understood that. But I think we want to concentrate on the things that will make the park more usable on the front end. And helping to prioritize and order those things is part of what we're going to go to the Parks Commission for, and then ultimately for you guys to approve those phasings and approvals. I think we want to get going on campgrounds as soon as we can, but until we have trails, the campgrounds are not terribly useful, so.
So, yeah, it looks beautiful out there, and next spring, we'll plan on starting that, the T-Dock, the fishing pier, so, the guys were out there a couple days ago, and they saw a couple otters playing on the ice, so there's gonna be some wildlife to see, and pretty neat.
Ice out there already?
Yeah, there was about an inch.
On the-
Well, we were out there yesterday morning, and it probably melted at the end of the day, but,
Yeah, on the back pond, the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
southern elbow is really shallow.
but,
Okay.
yeah.
Nothing further then, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Have a good week.
Sorry to beat you up.
No, that's fine.
Okay, environmental services. Morning.
So I don't know if the board wanted to continue the park discussion or not relative to the environmental assessment worksheet that's needed. But quickly, due to the number of campsites that are proposed in the park, that exceeds the threshold that requires mandatory environmental review. So That'll be a process that we have to go through and complete before we can entertain the conditional use permit application. Good, bad, or otherwise.
Just another step, you know.
Did it exceed by a significant number?
Yes.
Yes, such that I didn't want to change the number of campsites to meet that criteria because it would significantly change the nature of the camping that we're proposing. And you and your office are planning on putting those worksheets together?
Yeah, and working with Corey and the consultant, they'll provide us the information, then we have, it's like a 24 question worksheet you have to fill out, and then it goes to the Environmental Quality Board, and then they put it out in the Monitor, their publication, and then a number of state agencies can comment, and we have to reply to their comments, and then ultimately bring it to the board for review and determination of whether that process is sufficient or if a more intensive study is needed, which I don't foresee being the case, but good old environmental review rule, it's a hoop we have to jump through.
Well, we need to do what's necessary, so that's fine.
What I don't want to do is shortcut the development of this park. In the end, we're going to have one opportunity to build the trails and one opportunity to design, the features, and we don't want to fall short. We want to have an opportunity for this to be impactful. I think everybody had that thought in mind.
Those campgrounds will be a nice asset for the park, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, moving on to the first of the two items that I have, that is our fee schedule for the department. I heard from Jeff that the board had interest in visiting about after the fact fees in particular. So I threw out a few options for the board to consider relative to those fees, and then also going back to the last time our schedule was updated was in 2022, and we have I've just proposed as well an adjustment to those fees based on what inflation has been from that point to today. The board can leave those where they are or consider what's proposed there. Also of interest with the after the fact discussion is my GIS staff did a real cursory, rough analysis comparison of the data we recently received from the Change Finder product that we have that compares the 2017 imagery to the 2023 imagery to see what construction has occurred in that time period. We compared that to what we've permitted in shoreland for that time period. And we found, and this is again just very rough cursory macro review, we had permits for just under 50% of the new construction that Change Finder identified, and we had a little over 40% of the alteration construction that was permitted. So it looks like that will be a useful tool as far as we're not getting the compliance rate that we would like to see with things being permitted, and that'll have further work that we'll look at through the winter as property record staff refines what Change Finder identified, because it picks up things like a grouping of dock sections is large enough that it gets identified as a possible structure. So there'll be some review they have to go through to winnow out those types of things, and then once that's done, our staff will start a more in-depth review of non-permitted activity. But I thought that was important for the board to hear as you're contemplating different things that you could do to address after the fact scenarios.
One other thing before we get into discussing the fees and stuff is, I still say I would like to put together some sort of like a flyer or a pamphlet and work with the title companies and the banks and whomever, that anytime somebody comes to the county and purchases property and they're going to their closing, they get this flyer thing that says, you realize we have a shoreline ordinance. you know, please be aware of that, because I think there's still a lot of them come here from wherever, where there might not be land use, and they just do whatever. How do we avoid that? You know, I don't know.
I think we have some of the least restrictive land use. And the people that are coming from other places are coming from places where they have to permit everything. So I think there's value in marketing and advertising, our rules and those ordinances. And in truth, we could raise these fees to be whatever, and there are certain people that are perfectly fine to do it and then pay the after-the-fact fee later. Then there are people who make honest mistakes who that's gonna be a real hardship for. So there's all the way around this. And we have a statutory obligation for our fees to be reasonable and to cover the cost of providing the services to some extent. So reasonable, one test would be what are other people doing? What are other counties like us doing relative to that? We couldn't have a fee that was 10 times or 20 times what anybody else was charging without some basis for that. There are conditions where, and the Planning Commission has had people remove structures that are non-compliant and were non-permitted. That, I think, is more, has more teeth than another $5,000 or another $1,000 on a after-the-fact fee. But we don't want to say on one hand, we want people to be able to develop reasonably and within those limits. And we have to meet the conditions, and people who don't, there are circumstances for that. We don't want to lead with, you built where you shouldn't, and we're gonna come in and tell you to take it down, right? How you say that is important. And there's certain people who are not gonna worry about that. And then there are people who make honest mistakes and don't know. How many emails do I get through the website asking about shoreland ordinances and we have people asking a lot of questions about things that we don't even regulate. And I pass all of them on to Eric, and Eric says, yes, you would need to check with us on this, or no, we don't regulate that. As long as you're outside of this area, you don't need anything from the county to do that. He'll even say you're in a township that does have regulation or doesn't have regulation, so you may or may not want to check with them. A lot of people are making an honest attempt to make sure they're working within the rules. These, to some extent, have to cover the cost of providing the service. To another extent, they have to have some amount of prohibitive cost associated with them, but we really can't do that much more than other people around us are doing. So I think that would also be a piece that we'd want to take a look at, and I'm sure we can pull those fee schedules relatively easy from the surrounding counties.
So Jeff, you brought up a point, but you used the word non-permanent. So there's a contractor, I think he's retired, he built in the cities, and he said there were several instances where additions or even garages were having to take down. And so non-permanent to me doesn't qualify taking down a garage or a portion of the house. In your time here in Hubbard County, have we ever required someone to take down a garage or a portion of the house? Or have we just always fined them? Do you remember?
I can think of one lakeside screen porch that applied for an after-the-fact variance many years ago and was denied, and the porch was required to be removed. We had another situation that went to litigation and resulted in the need of the landowner to acquire adjacent lot
I remember that one.
and subdividing to bring it into compliance, and some fines that were assessed. Another individual in a PUD overbuilt their structure and ended up taking a chainsaw and cutting the eaves off their structure so that it fell within their footprint. So those would be the ones that come to mind. Otherwise, there hasn't been a lot of, I guess there haven't been any infractions severe enough that it prompted or resulted in the structure having to be taken down or moved. And several years ago, we did borrow from Morrison County their concept of if something didn't get a permit and it could be permitted, we just charge an additional $50 permit fee if they resolve it within 15 days of being notified. That has worked incredibly well. The majority of things are resolved that way. So that helps us administer things efficiently because they don't get protracted and drawn out. When it comes to things that require variances, that's where, you know, the one suggestion I would have, and it was one I raised the last time we visited the schedule, was to charge a fee per item that is requested, because we're increasingly seeing a half dozen different things thrown into a variance application, and it involves the board basically reviewing 6 different applications essentially instead of one. So it would also help deter folks that are asking for variances for minor things like decks or platforms or sheds too close to the lake, where they, you know, lump a whole, they get tagged for a number of those things, and then they say, well, the fee is only $1,000, so I'll ask for all those. If it was $1,000 per item, it might cause them to rethink, do I really want to do that, or do I want to look at what my permittable alternatives are? So that would be my primary suggestion as far as a thing we could try to deal with the after-the-fact variances. But I did compare, as Jeff mentioned, I did look at many other counties' schedules, and we're in line with being probably at the strong end of what we charge for the after-the-fact fee. But with the variance application for after-the-facts in particular, the $1,000 doesn't seem to cause people to bat an eye. And I would say that of different economic means, landowners too. It, you know, it's not that it's just the well-to-dos that are not bothered by that. It seems like the average lake property owner doesn't seem to, you know, say anything about what the fee is. So I'm open to whatever. I just threw some food out for thought.
I'd be in support of that per
item.
Yeah, I would be too.
Yes.
At the full rate per item, or?
I see here you've got one
I
option.
kinda like the option B.
Where it's 1,000 for the first and then 500 for each after that, something like that. Start off with that, see if that helps at all.
That was the one I had in mind too.
You know, the other things that come into play too is we usually work with new owners that buy a property, don't do their homework. They come in with their, here's what we'd like to do, and then we learn of some violations on the property. In those cases, if they cooperate with us, we don't charge the after-the-fact fee. But that's another thing that we could look at as a policy change to say, you know, we're gonna charge the fee regardless, and that may prompt people to start to learn they need to do their research before they purchase. So that would be an option.
Kind of to what Jeff said, though, I mean, you know, if somebody just inadvertently measures wrong and it ends up being a problem later, I mean, okay, I get things happen. But it's the ones that purposely do it full well knowing that they're just trying to get away with it. Those are the ones that bother me, but I don't know how you separate them.
Some of it can be done by the Board of Adjustment when they approve an after-fact variance, you know, just in, in the questioning of what, you know, the process of what they've gone through and all that. You can kind of feel some of those out.
You have to be consistent, though, how you apply it, because otherwise you could get yourself into a situation where somebody could say you're being arbitrary and capricious about how you're applying it, then you got a legal problem. So that's the problem, you know, if you set it, it's almost gotta be the same for all. Your only teeth is if somebody, and I was sitting through one where somebody built a paver brick patio or whatever, and they knew they couldn't. They were denied the variance to do it, and they did it anyhow. Make them take it out. Make them take
That's
it out.
one where you can't, you're not arbitrary and capricious, you just take it out and no approval after fact. You know,
Yeah.
those are the kind of things you can feel, you know, you
Right.
can
But I mean, as
filter
far as
through.
fines on determining, you know, what to charge for a fine, those have to be consistent.
I would have trouble penalizing the new owner for the past owner's errors.
It's tricky.
That's where I'm for that option B, because there's so many other things like that.
Yeah.
I've even seen situations where a survey done maybe 10 years ago, and you met that setback, and the owner put it right at the 100-foot,
Yeah.
and then over 10 years, maybe you lost a foot of shoreline. I mean,
Which was beyond the control of.
beyond the control.
Control of the current property owner.
So one of the questions is, you're currently working with permits that wouldn't otherwise need a variance or a conditional use if it's within a period of time, and just administratively getting those things done for a nominal fee. With the number of non-conforming or non-permitted changes that we're identifying with our new technology, it seems that we should probably keep that option open, at least until we get through that. We don't know how big that backlog is, but it's gonna be hundreds. So that's one thing, is do we wanna leave that opportunity for them to work administratively with those things? That includes some of the new owners and just cleaning things up that would otherwise have gotten a permit administratively, that doesn't require that doesn't require a variance or doesn't require conditional use or anything else, just they meet the criteria, they just didn't get the permit, we're gonna do that quickly and fix that. And then the second one is related to the after the fact issues. I think he needs a little direction on what to put on the list for next week when we hold our public hearing and post these. Option A is just increasing the fee for the variance to 2,000. Option B is 1,000 per item. And option C is 1,000 for the first item and 500 for each additional item. And I've heard people refer to B, but I heard them use the language of C before, so I wanted to
That was gonna be
clarify
my
that.
question. Yeah.
It felt like you were clear about what you were saying, but
Yeah, so I was meaning option C, so.
Yeah,
The same here, option C.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then we can
it's-
revisit it after a year and see. I like what you're doing right now, when you're giving people that option for $50, to correct it. Because we don't want variance upon variance either.
no,
And I know when I was on the variance board, if somebody came before us for a variance, my question was always to myself, would we have allowed this if they'd have done it properly?
Yeah.
And then it makes it easier to do it. But if it was something we wouldn't have allowed in the first place, then it's hard to pass it.
I wonder, Eric, if it would be helpful if you gave a little more guidance, saying that we're trying to solve this problem, from the county board's aspect to the board of, the variance board, and just saying, because you always give recommendations. If you see something that you think should be torn out or, addressed in a different way.
who's
if you would-
currently attending those meetings?
Davis.
It might be a really good idea from a policy standpoint, from the board preference standpoint, for you to give a summary at an upcoming meeting of this conversation, so that they hear that. It's kind of hard for that to come from Eric.
yeah.
That the board would support some stronger enforcement of those things, and I like that test of, you put in a patio. Well, if you put in a patio after you applied for it and you didn't get it, that's a pretty clear stipulation. If you knew you should apply, but you didn't apply, and then it was, there's levels of that, right? The person who's 149 feet away because the ordinary high water, or the water is a little bit higher than the measured ordinary high water. Well, that's a completely different situation. But I think if your intent is for that that commission to know they have your backing relative to taking a little stronger stance on things that are not permitted. I think that should come from you. And then when you have that conversation about policy and they kind of set that policy, interpret that policy, then it's back to Eric to enforce it, to say, this falls into this category, this falls into this category, based on the information that we have, and now you get to make a decision about that.
So this goes back to my original comment, because, you know, I see a lot of these in my district, and Tom probably sees plenty too. But there's always this pleading of ignorance. So how do you eliminate the ignorance when somebody's moving, you know, hundreds of yards of dirt in a bluff impact zone? And come on. I mean, common sense would tell you probably need a permit for that if you know there's a shoreline ordinance. So how do we address that? And that goes back to my thing, if we simply had a flyer or something that we did when they bought the property and they got it, and now they come to you and they say, whoa, I didn't know that. Well, really? It was right there at your closing. It was there. So the pleading ignorance part kind of loses weight.
Shoreland is required by statute. There isn't a shoreland property in the state of Minnesota that doesn't have requirements.
So I'll just use an example. I come from super rural North Dakota where there's no land use at all. And I come in and buy my first lake home and they have, how am I gonna know there's a lakeshore ordinance unless I actually was interested in looking? And I think they just sometimes go in and start chopping trees down and moving dirt around. That's what they do for a living, you know, so it's.
It's kind of
Don't think
like
much of it.
they buy property and think the township's gonna take care of it, take care of the road, because they've come from places
Yeah.
that,
And it's
So
got a
how do you
road sign.
eliminate that
Yeah.
ignorance, you know, you have a notice when they purchased the property that they saw, or even had to sign up at closing saying, I understand, there's a Hubbard County Shoreline Ordinance, and they sign it.
So Tim Nelson in Cook County has what they're asking for, and they do provide that to all the closing companies and all the real estate agents, and it's on the county website. It's about 150 pages. I mean, you could condense it, you could summarize it, you could do something with it, but other people are doing
Yeah.
something similar to that. And I
Does
believe,
it work for them?
no, they have the same problem.
It's still, so it really didn't do
But
much?
you come to the situation where someone says, I didn't know, you simply say, we've made every good faith effort so that you should know that.
Yeah,
And that is important when you get into a sticky situation.
Or we've run into situations where landowners are acknowledging they're aware that there is an ordinance, but I hired a contractor and I expected the contractor to know the ins and outs of the details and take care of permitting, and so we get that finger pointing between the contractor and the property owner too.
yeah. You know, and from, you know, having that, something like that at closing would, if you ended up in a legal situation, certainly would be beneficial on our side.
Even a
But
simple,
I know it costs a little bit of money probably to do it, because you're printing how many
you think you could have a
forms
simple,
a year?
you could have a simple one-page form that says, I acknowledge that Hubbard County has a shoreline management ordinance and I need to follow it, or something like that.
Yeah.
and they have an NU list where they can access the whole ordinance online.
Part of the issue with real estate transactions too is the move away from people having abstracts of title, because the abstracts always have an entry of when the shoreline ordinance is adopted and amended, you know, that's shown in the abstract. But now that title insurance is what people do more and more, they don't see the history on their property.
Well, back to our fee schedule. I think we're pretty much in agreement. We need to keep up with the rate of inflation. It's been a little while since we adjusted all of that. And then I think we all are in consensus with the option C is the best plan for the after-the-fact variances and so forth. So if you just want to move forward with that thought,
Sure.
I think that'd be adequate. And then maybe in the meantime, between you and your staff and maybe just sit and think about what could be provided at a closing or something like that. I know everybody DocuSigns nowadays, so they don't even hardly go into offices, but
But it could still be part of the packet.
yeah. So, and maybe talk with Jeff to see what the other county had, to see if it's something we can adapt or modify, or 150 pages, we need to shrink that, but just something along those lines so that it is informational that we do have this in place, and yes, you do need to follow this, and here's the next step. So,
I've got a couple of questions.
yes.
E911 address is 110, and then the E911 road sign is 275. So was a person able to get the 911 address and put up their own sign?
No, the highway department places the sign on the property to make sure it's in the proper standard location.
Okay, so then is that then a total of $385 to have a 911 sign put up?
No, the road sign is only when you're constructing a new road or you're placing enough, you reach the threshold of 3 or more structures, locatable structures on a roadway, that would prompt it to require a road name, so that those addresses are then addressed off of that new road name at the points that they have their driveway approaches that reach that shared, could be a private road.
Okay,
But it would just be the E911 address fee of 100 currently, that would go up to 110, that would be paid if you needed a new address.
okay. If you're building a new house and you got a new driveway in, and that would take care of the sign itself too, and,
Yes.
okay, okay. And
Yes,
then,
and
The question last night was somebody was replacing a sign because it had failed,
yeah,
and he bought the sign on
Amazon.
Amazon, got it for cheaper. Do we have a problem as long as it meets the criteria of the size and the color and the retro reflectivity?
How do you know that, though?
Yeah, I don't
I
know.
looked at our policies and I can't see how we could object, and what reason we could have for objecting to that, and we may actually point people to that and say, you can do this, and we don't have to worry about,
I would think as long as the format
we're not making money on
matches
that.
the format that is required through E911, and that the retro reflectivity is the standard that is required, I don't see why someone couldn't purchase a sign through that source. But trying to find out if it meets that standard or not is gonna be difficult, because there's people that see a green number on the end of somebody's driveway in Crow Wing County, well, then they think, well, okay, in Hubbard County, I'm gonna put a green one up. Well, it's blue in Hubbard County. So, I mean, there is differences there, but I was gonna say, I think $110 is fairly reasonable, because when you think of the costs that associated with installing that sign, if you're gonna do it according to the standard, the installer has to make 2 trips out there, one for a locate, and then one to actually go physically out and place the sign, plus the post, plus the hardware that's used. It's not a bad deal.
Yeah.
The same thing with street signs. I mean, these signs do not get any cheaper. Every single year, the cost goes up, and the posts, cost of post has gone up probably 50% in the last 3 years. So, I mean, it's actually, especially the street sign, I think that's a pretty good bargain for what you're getting.
Yeah, and to your question, Ted, landowners, if they have their sign damaged or it's just has lost its reflectivity, which is happening more and more due to the age of most of our blades when they were installed in the 90s. The 911 ordinance states that the blade and post become the landowner's property and responsibility after it's installed. So they can go to the highway department and for a lesser cost obtain a replacement post or blade if they need to. And the highway department's also testing batch ordering of blades from another vendor that has the numbers stamped on as opposed to adhesive lettering to hopefully improve their longevity and durability. And by batch ordering, they can reduce the per unit cost. And so that's something that's being tested too.
I notice on my sign, the portion that's facing south is deteriorating, but the north side's perfect.
Whatever.
I was
Just
just
like
gonna say, so I'm
rotating
gonna
tires.
flip it around.
Yep.
I also had a question, let's see, on the SSTS, privies, or what I normally would call an outhouse. Now, this would be anywhere, not just in the lakeshore zone?
Correct.
Okay. And then, short-term rentals, is that countywide or just the shoreline ordinance part?
It's only in shoreland.
Okay. Thank you.
My question on short-term rentals are most people registering them with you?
Hard to say. We still receive complaints of certain properties that aren't licensed that are alleged to operate, so our practice is to send them a letter letting them know of the ordinance and the requirement for a license. Some do come in and then get licensed, others don't, but it's really difficult for us to, get the documentation we would need to say for sure, yes, you are doing this and you aren't licensed. So that's the rub. We have seen a slight decline in licenses per year, but it's hard to say if that's due to people having tried it and realized it's not for them or exactly what's going on there. But, by and large, we haven't had the issues there that were projected to occur when the rules were first adopted.
I don't know what your experience is too, but I know prior to us having this ordinance, I was getting calls all the time about bad behavior.
Yeah,
I
I
have
was
not had
too.
a single call since we.
Yeah.
We don't hear that. It's, they don't have a license as opposed to they're making too much noise or generating too much trash, or, there was a few issues of vehicles blocking public roads because there wasn't sufficient parking on the property, but that's incidental.
Someone I know that has a license for short-term rental said that they felt the market here was saturated because they had rented for several years and it's gone down. I don't know if that's true or not, but that was their opinion on it.
Is it worth a 10 to 20 hour study project in the off-season to go on and scan VRBO and Airbnb and see if we come up with an address that we don't have listed?
We have a few anonymous informants
Yes,
that
I know.
let us know of those pretty well, so.
But we decided not to hire a company that does that for us because again, in Cook, they have so many that they have a contract with a company that scours that and they do all of the licensing, so it's something that they have contracted somebody else to do. But they did that because someone on staff got a bug to go out and do all that research, try to find out how many numbers there were. And I don't think it would be difficult to go out and scour and use the maps and identify addresses that are, because even in the off season when if they pull them, they're not going to pull them, because if they want to rent them in June and July, they're going to have them available in January so that people can see them when they're making their plans, right? So they're going to be listed, and it wouldn't take very long to do a spot check, is what I'm saying. And we opted for self-management of who has, and we always respond the same way as we do with any other noticed violation. If somebody files a complaint or makes a phone call, then staff follow up on it, right? So it is possible that somebody could take a day or a half a day and just go through and look at everything that's listed, because the technology is kind of giving it away pretty quick.
Yeah, there might be, AI might help you with that and give you a list.
There's companies
SDRs on water.
there's companies that'll do that query for you too for relatively cheaper than what we could do it.
Sure.
But yeah, there's seasonality to how many hits you're gonna get as far as active listings. You get some that know the game, and so they put it up in the off season, get their bookings, and then take it down. We've seen others that have gotten enough of a repeat customer base that they don't list online, so then they're really under the radar. But it really, it's gone remarkably well. As far as, you know, that's not something that we get regular calls, correspondence on from folks complaining about it.
So is there anything else you need as far as guidance with the fee schedule?
I don't believe so. If you're good with the inflation adjustments and option C on the variances, I can easily finalize that and get that to Jeff for the public hearing.
Okay.
I just have one more comment about the CUP with the campground and pickerel. I want to thank you and your staff for working with the landowner because it turned out really nice from what I can see from the road. I know you guys worked really hard on that, so we appreciate
You're welcome.
it.
Yeah.
Were they open this summer?
I don't know, I don't think so, but I just, you know, I just drove by from the road.
For an operating permit, have they?
No, he plans on doing that this winter. He needs to, and then, yeah, I think his plan is to have some of the sites available for occupation this coming season.
All right.
And my second item for you this morning is our natural resource block grant. We need to enter into a new agreement for that. You know, there've been some reductions in the amount of funding we received due to the legislative action this past session. There were also a lot of new requirements that were added to the agreement that appear driven kind of by the state's whole fraud prevention initiatives. So, you know, I believe I provided a copy with highlights of what I found to be the new language in there. The biggest one of concern was some language that would say that we'd have to itemize and account for staff time spent on the septic and shoreline program management. That would be a new thing that we haven't had to do before. I did reach out to our board conservationist with the Board of Water and Soil Resources that administers the agreement and asked about that, and he said, I have his email saved of there won't be any changes as far as what's required of the county, so I just wanted to let you know, when I read the agreement, I'm a little leery, but he claims nothing's gonna change, so I suppose we can operate according to his statement, and then if it does change, we can always reevaluate at that point, but other than the extra,
Paper.
yeah, all these extra little requirements, hopefully they don't actually result in any additional work that we need to do.
And those WACA dollars are passed on to the SWCD, so they're aware of these changes too?
Yes, I did provide Crystal at the Soil and Water District with a copy and told her what the funding amounts were that she can plan for.
And has prevailing wage always been in there?
No, that's a new
I
thing, so
noticed that also.
that won't affect us, but it will certainly eat into what the Soil and Water District can do with any projects through the water plan, and I don't know if that will make its way or already has into the One Watershed One plan funding. But if it does or has, that'll reduce what they can get done because, you know,
It made that tiny home project from hubby, it made it unattainable. And we had to greatly alter our plan to build with the dollars we had.
so, yeah, my guess would be at some point, the local water management portion of this agreement will go away, just because now they've got most of the One Watershed One plans in place, and they're funding those to a much greater degree than what this is. I can see this being phased out at some point in the future.
We talked about that before signing on to the One Watershed, One Plan, because we did not want to lose that local control.
Yeah, and she, I know, we talked recently, we're still approved putting together a local water plan for Hubbard County. Because we have other issues outside of the scope of
Yep, we do.
One Watershed.
Yeah, and at some point, I imagine the state's gonna say we're no longer gonna
Yeah, probably.
have a countywide water plan anymore because they have all the One Watershed plans. And, yeah, my concerns that I voiced with that when they first started that remain. I just don't, it just doesn't seem an efficient way to go about things, but it sells well to the legislature.
8 different plans for 8 different water bodies. It's just, none of them are truly consistent across the board because each one is different or unique, so, yeah. All right, so do we need a motion to approve
Yes,
this?
with those caveats of additional language. Seems like every time they renew this, there's more.
Well, they are good at placing new requirements and more requirements on counties, for sure, so. All right, so is there a motion?
I'll move to approve the block grant agreement.
Okay, Tom moves. Is there a second?
This is Ted, I'll second.
Thank you, Ted. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
Human Resources.
Good morning.
Morning.
Human Resources has before you today personnel policy revisions, mainly reflecting our requirements per Minnesota statute for the new Minnesota paid leave that will be forthcoming. There's a requirement that notification has to be made to employees prior to December 1st, even though the law doesn't come into effect until January 1. So this is a meeting that we need to get it done and approved so we can get these pushed out to employees and prior to December 1st with that. The section 16 of the policy, because the Minnesota paid leave made reflections in other areas of section 16 of benefits, mainly the ESST and paid time off. The section was sent to our labor attorney. They reviewed that, made the edits and the changes that needed to be reflective, that because of the paid leave law and the language, it affected ESST this way, so updates had to be made there, and it affected this way with PTO. So edits had to be made, which are reflected in the policy then, updates as well too. So those are the requests today, is to approve those, approve those updates to the personnel policy, reflecting that, and then also, as a housekeeping, section 31 in our personnel policy, the workplace emergency plan, working and communicating with Troy Christensen, the emergency management director. This policy within the personnel policy really isn't needed anymore. It's being wrapped into the EMS plan that he is going through and working, so housekeeping is just to remove that, and it's reflected in the work that Troy is doing. So would request approval for those personnel policy revisions.
The Minnesota paid family leave has created a lot of issues for multiple entities and then business owners as well.
Yeah.
Everybody's gonna struggle. The complications that this has developed into, and the negative of it is more time, more paperwork, more tracking. So it's been difficult. We certainly appreciate the work. So if there's nothing else, is there a motion?
This is Ted, I'll make the motion to approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Right, thank you, David. Any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carried.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did we miss SWCD earlier?
Oh,
It's gonna be deferred.
Okay.
We postponed that till
Yeah.
December 2nd.
Okay, so administrator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will just put this out there as this is balanced to that point. As we talked about, we're showing the fully budgeted payroll. I'm showing the number here, $350,000 left if we did make that adjustment to 97.5. So I believe that's close to what the actual planned use would be. The planned use of fund balance in the highway is because they're planning to use some reserves from the gas, or from the transportation tax, sales tax money. They've got more projects in there than they plan on taking in, which is intentional. So I believe that we're good with this, and then the following pages are the full IFS budget detail that I ran last week. So this includes all the changes after benefits elections, any staffing changes that we had prior to November 1st. This is close to a last line of detail that we're gonna have, unless you have questions. This is what I'm gonna bring to the TNT meeting then next week. And I'll update that presentation that we've given in previous years to summarize, but this will be the information that it's based on.
It's in 2 weeks, so,
2 weeks.
yeah.
I keep skipping right over that. December 2nd, the next time we're gathered in this room. We'll be gathered in the morning and then again in the evening. No, we won't be in the evening. We're on the 4th.
Yeah, because TNT's on
Ambu-
Thursday.
Ambulances on Tuesday night, on the
The
2nd.
second. Yep.
So I don't know how many of you've got your truth and taxation statements yet, but
I did.
I did, and actually, assessed value went up probably 30,000, but the taxes went down 2.59%. So,
I was gonna mention the tax notices are out within the window, statutorily required window.
All right, good.
Yay, yay.
Before Thanksgiving, everyone's gotta have that
all
for,
the time you're not spending on that.
everyone's gotta have an opportunity to discuss that at Thanksgiving.
Yeah, I did, I just received, I see on my phone, I received a phone call from a constituent about taxes and the valuation. I haven't had a chance to review it all, but I plan on contacting him after I do a little research to figure out what actually is the issue, if it's the value or if it's the tax.
Yeah.
You know, because sometimes they're interchanged and confused, and they don't always go hand in hand. One can go up, but one can go down, and so forth, so. I have not received mine yet, so.
Should be soon. I know that most of them hit the mailboxes yesterday.
It could be in my mailbox. I didn't pick up my mail yesterday.
So then, barring any questions that you have about that and paying attention to the fact that we actually have an HRA meeting scheduled soon. The attached draft schedule is just the summary of the changes that we've gotten from other departments. So for your information, this combined with Eric's discussion will be what we'll be bringing to the meeting on December 2nd in 2 weeks. And I don't think I have anything more to say about that.
Like I said, the only question I had is, I know on the Auditors section here, you have the township map. A complete township map is, I think that was $10 or whatever. But I was just curious, is that the page out of the plat book? Or is it a specific,
I don't know what that is. I don't know that we've
Okay.
ever sold one.
okay. All right.
So I will,
And everything seems to be so readily available online. It's
Right.
faster to look it up in the GIS sometimes than it is to even flip open a plat book to try to
where
find.
did you
what
see
you're looking
township
for.
map?
I'll go back up, right under auditor.
It's like the third one down, fourth one down, maybe a little further.
Labels?
Under
Setup
setup
fee,
fees for,
yeah.
and then labels, Jeff.
Oh, that's labels. That's not a map. That's if
Oh.
somebody requests mailing labels.
Oh,
So
okay,
that
all
could
right.
happen.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
My misunderstanding here.
Yep.
Okay. Sure.
That could happen.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah. Okay.
The only update I would add to the meetings to note, and I'll throw it back to you for committee reports, and we are planning on having a closed session yet today.
Yes.
Is that there is the MnDOT Highway 34 kind of open house over at City Hall
Tonight.
tonight at, well, from 4 to 6, so, yep. So I'm gonna go because I'm representing those items that are coming from HLDC and the number of lots that are gonna be available, and I want them to use data from 5 years from now and not data from 5 years previous when they're making their determinations about
Or
that
even
corridor.
more previous. Yes.
So I will be attending that meeting.
Okay. Anything else administrator-wise?
Not unless you have questions.
Okay. Should we do committee reports and then we can go into a closed session, or would you prefer to do it the other way
I
around?
got nothing because I've been gone.
Okay.
I only have one. We got an email from Jim, the CEO from Prime West yesterday. I'll just read it. I am pleased to inform you that as of January 1st, 2026, Prime West Health will be the single plan for prepaid medical assistance program, which is PMAP. The participants are medical assistants ages under 65 in our 24 county service area. DHS announces to the county's human service agendas this last week. This single plan status is projected to increase our enrollment by approximately 26,000 members. And so we've been anticipating this, staff has been gearing up for it, and then more discussion will take place at our Prime West meeting on December 4th. That's all I have.
Okay. I had the one watershed, one plan meeting for the Leech Lake yesterday. It was just a policy update amendments, minor things, nothing too dramatic there. And that went well. And then we had the ambulance district meeting in the afternoon in Walker. And we kind of finalized our plan for our, I don't know what you'd call it, in December, coming up at the annual conference, or presentation, I guess, about what we did as a cooperative effort between Hubbard and Cass counties to develop the ambulance service district. And that's all I had.
My turn. Yeah, I was at the ambulance committee meeting yesterday. One additional thing that we did was motion to compare MCIT.
Oh,
MCIT
yes, for insurance.
For insurance, minus the workers' comp.
Yes.
And then last week I had the Kitchen County Regional Library, the first of the labor negotiations. We got one more, hopefully one more tomorrow. Just see how it goes after tomorrow with that. And that's all I had.
And I had one meeting, the HRDC. We welcomed a new Green Corps member. She'll work with the HRDC through September 2026, and I know that we've had luck with Green Corps members here. And so she'll be assisting in the energy conservation and green transportation areas. We talked about the housing lending update, thriving communities. This is where they're looking for local farmers who can produce or may actually have extra produce for schools and some of the other local food systems in the area. Their executive director talked about the NATO conference that he had attended, and we had BSU students presented on the age-friendly housing plan. And I thought the timeline was kind of long for it. It ended up being like a 6-year deal, and it, you know, should be shorten the timelines to get that up and running quicker. And then there was just some administrative items, so it was a short and quick meeting.
I guess, thanks for refreshing my memory, Ted. I did attend the Age-Friendly Minnesota conference here at the Living at Home space. And there were a lot of presentations given. There was a panel discussion for dancing. The representative from Dancing Sky was there as well. One of the things, or two of the things that they seemed to be stressed over and over again was transportation difficulties in the rural communities, and then in the rural sector altogether, and some sort of senior housing. Everybody seems to be struggling with adequate transportation for people, and then also the idea of senior housing, not assisted livings, but just reasonably priced housing for seniors where everything's handicapped accessible, one floor, you know, no elevators or anything like that. So I was going to try to keep track of some of the things that were talked about there. There's another seminar coming up in Bemidji. I don't remember the day right now, that they're going to have banks there, developers, and other organizations there that are all going to talk about the housing issue and to try to find a way to provide economically priced senior housing for multitudes of people. So that'll be kind of interesting to see what happens there. And I think that's all I had. So I guess now we will go into closed session. So I will need a motion to close the open meeting
So move.
and open the closed session. Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are back into the open session. The last thing we have then is meetings to note. We have those in front of us. Is there anything else that's coming up besides the open house tonight at the city council office for the State 34 proposed planning project?
The AMC nuts and bolts meeting is not on this list, but it is on the AMC website. I'm not sure if that's, or is it on this list?
It was last time.
Oh, okay, it was last time.
Okay.
I don't believe I put it on this time.
So that third weekend in January, or third week in January.
Oh, yes, that's the one that I can't attend. Yep.
That, Mr. Chair, that department managers meeting, I was gonna be scheduled for the 25th, but, I missed, last month's SWCD meeting, kinda like to be at it this time. I could have done it, my part of it after that meeting, but now we're gonna have, we've got, labor negotiations scheduled at 10, so that means I need to be there at 9.
Okay.
So if I can have my scheduled time delayed till December, that would be helpful.
Okay, so we'll need somebody for the 25th for the department head. Is there someone who can attend that?
I was at the last one.
Yep,
I can attend on the 25th at 9.
yes,
Yeah, I can do that.
okay,
You're gonna be here at 10 anyway.
I do.
yeah,
And I'll do December.
okay.
Thank you.
All right, and if there's nothing else, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a motion, is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We